Okay, just a quick one this morning, just on this episode, and this little guy, Frank Wright. This guy, let's just get straight into it, right? Let's look at the Cinderella story. This guy was just took it upon himself to drive up from Newbury to Wigan. I don't know, off the top of my head, must be 300 miles, something like that. Because he wanted to just, sniff the air in Makerfield and get around it. So there he is with his lad, who's nearly as tall as him, and up comes Mr. Will Coleshill. Now, Mr. Will Coleshill is he's the man behind Resistance GB. Resistance GB is independent journalism covering the resistance, defending free speech and rights against state tyranny. Founded 2020 by Will Coleshill. Support our cause. Yeah, I bet. Now, the thing with, I'd like to point out with Will Coleshill, do your own research with the name, is how similar he is in tone and role and all the rest of it with another gentleman called Young Bob. Now, Young Bob is someone I've talked about before on multiple videos, so I'll try and keep this relatively brief. But Young Bob, other adjectives could be applied, such as, in the instance when he was asked, are you a Jew? He said, yes.
In Matthew, I'm only sent, said Jesus, to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Are you a Jew?
Yes.
You're a Jew. Okay, well, he's sent for you, but he's not sent for the rest of us. He's not sent for me. He's not sent to Gentiles.
That was when he was 16. That was back in the day when he was 16. He is now 17. And he's now trying to sort of firefight this, because this kind of did the rounds. It's like, well, hang on a minute. You are, in this clip, you're saying you're a Jew. But there you are with all your based Christian icons saying, I'm an Orthodox Christian, guys, and all the rest of it. But here you are in this video a year ago saying, responding to a question, are you a Jew, with the affirmative. Now, he's trying to firefight this, and he's saying, oh, no, you don't understand. I was just being, semantic with the Semitics. And no, really, I'm just pointing to this quote in the Bible. But, I mean, okay, we get it, mate. You are the based Orthodox Christian. And you've got your icons like a bookshelf and all the rest of it. But, I'm an Orthodox Christian. If you ask me, are you a Jew? I would say no. Like, if you asked any Orthodox Christian, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm not saying I speak for all of Orthodoxy here. But if you asked any Orthodox Christian, are you a Jew? I think they would all say no, unless they were in fact ethnically a Jew. Now, whatever, mate. Fine. Whatever, but it just seems like branding. This is what I'm getting at with the icons. This is what I've talked about at length before, so don't want to dwell on this. Seems that your role, you're playing the based Christian guy, the based Orthodox Christian guy, the Charlie Kirk guy, and as we'll come to see, that there's a big pattern around all these influencers. They all seem to be the based Christian that just happens to have all the Zigger talking points, and it's just it feels, or it seems to sort of drift into, it seems like an inorganic movement. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think you don't need to use your faith as a brand. You can just be a Christian. Like, I'm a Christian, and that's just that. It doesn't say like my name on social media, Christian. If you ask me, are you a Christian? I'll say yes. If you ask me, are you a Jew? I'll say no. These are just simple responses to simple questions. But whatever, we'll move on from that. But this guy, he echoes, what's the other guy, Will, what's his name? Will Coleshill? I don't know. I don't know. I think that's just funny. I don't think there's any method in that, to be clear. But, there are patterns here involving certain influences being wafted up to form scaffoldings of certain movements, and this just feels very, very astroturfed. And with Musk's hand in the background, the great astroturfer himself, who has essentially bought Twitter and used it as a giant astroturfing tool, he's got the retweet. Straight into Frank Wright here. Now, I saw this video. It was just getting retweeted, and I watched about, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes of it. I kind of tried to watch it in full this morning before getting into this, and my initial visceral reaction to it, and I actually sent it to SJJ within 2 minutes, and I just said, this is not spontaneous. This is getting all the retweets. Listen to how he's talking. Listen to his patterns of speech. This is not spontaneous speech. And that was my visceral reaction to it before I knew anything more about it. And I just saw it had, not a crazy amount of retweets, but whatever. People were getting terribly excited about it.
So what has persuaded you to come out today?
Well, we've driven up, my son and I, from Newbury, because obviously we can see the state of the nation and there's a national emergency, and we need to obviously think about the future. What kind of country are we going to have for our children? Or are we going to have a nation at all? Now, I'd rather live in a nation and not a market, not a borderless international supermarket browsed by mutually hostile strangers, not something that reduces us all to bargain hunters. We need to save the nation, and I think that Rupert Lowe's Restore Britain is the only credible vehicle to do that.
All the retweets. Listen to how he's talking. Listen to his patterns of speech. This is not spontaneous speech, and that was my visceral reaction to it before I knew anything more about it, and I just saw it had, not a crazy amount of retweets, but whatever. People were getting terribly excited about it. I was just like, this is a bit weird. So again, delving a little bit further, right? We'll get into the Cinderella story that he'd taken it upon himself to drive 300 miles to Makerfield just to get around. And up comes Will Coleshill, who's just, oh God, I need to get a few more vox pops. Yeah, it's been a bit quiet here today. Oh, who's this guy walking down the road with his young lad and, whatever. Oh, I'll ask him. And then, boof, out comes this 13-minute monologue. Now, I don't know if I don't think he's memorized this down pat. I don't think he's got it all verbatim. I don't think he's, sat in there and rehearsed it, word for word. But it just seems like he'd gone there knowing that he would be approached and knowing that he would need to say something, and he had things prepared to say. I mean, possibly like bullet points in his mind, whatever it might be. But it's not spontaneous speech. That was my visceral reaction on watching it in full. That is just my instinctive reaction to it. Now, again, we'll stick with the Cinderella story here. So this guy, Frank Wright, who's been on social media for a long time, not really getting much in the way of traction. I was aware of who he was before. And he had basically a like for like, pretty much, follower and following list on Twitter previously, and he'd make posts which didn't really get any engagement, sort of 1 or 2 likes, sometimes no like, this kind of thing. So he wasn't really getting any traction on Twitter. But he's been in and around this scene. Does it say how long he's been on there for? Joined January 2022, right? Okay. Well, it's just a bit, it doesn't really make sense that now this man who's apparently, again, Cinderella Story, this great orator who can really surmise it all and can really knock it out the park just like that in the street. Why didn't you do any of this before? Like, why didn't you have a YouTube channel? Now, he has got a Substack, and I noticed his Substack previously. Perhaps I'll get into that at the end here. But his Substack, he's relatively highly followed Substack. He had about 5,000 previously. And, I mean, this is the key point. And again, this is quite an unwieldy topic. But so, okay, Frank Wright gets the big retweet from Elon Musk following this. And this is the key point. So you've got one I suspect is astroturfed premeditation with certain figures coming involved because they want to move the dynamic, they want to move the narrative, they want to establish themselves. So you've got young Bob, who this guy will be on young Bob. That is my absolute, we'll say that. Young Bob apparently said some tweet yesterday saying, I've got a special guest on the next podcast. It will be Frank Wright, or I'm a monkey's uncle. So he's being wafted up by all these figures whom I believe are also wafted up. Frank Wright apparently is a base Catholic. So this just seems that you're getting these kind of based pro-Kremlin, which we'll get to in a minute, Christians. Just like Paul Golding, just like Frank Wright, just like young Bob, all these other ones. This is like a scaffolding which is getting around the sort of the media orbit around Restore. And as I say, I think it is astroturfed. Now the key point is, he then gets the Elon Musk retweet. So now his post's going into fucking orbit. And he's gone up from around about 5,000 followers to 32,000 followers. So he's jumped up, 27,000 followers in the last, I don't know, I guess 36 hours, something like that. And his Substack, what's on his Substack? So, okay, we'll look at Frank Wright. Oh, who is this guy? Wow, what an orator. Great. I found out more. What's his website? Oh, Frank Wright Substack. Let's go and have a look. Oh, great, he's on Substack. Let's follow him. What's his big essay that he published within 12 hours of that, Cinderella Story occurring? Schizopolitics Ukraine. Now, I've read this. It's just like, I don't know. It's the fact that he's calling it schizopolitics is slightly fucking, I don't know, ironic in itself, because what he is pushing is all the really quite naff information laundering topics. This is UK column. This is James Delingpole-esque. This would make Morgoth blush. I mean, he's rolled off it all. I think Morgoth's such a low-hanging fruit grabber. He's made his money, and now he's just trying to sort of like, memory hole all of it. Well, this guy comes into it and he's got his anti-Ukraine, pro-Russian, absolute fucking Kremlin narratives, bang, and that's on May the 22nd, within 12 hours of his Cinderella Story occurring and his big Elon Musk retweet. So what I'm saying is, this guy is a new media apparatchik being wafted up. It's got the huge waft, a Musk-Wafted, and this is, I don't know if he's going to go into the actual fabric of Restore, which is a potentiality. Because I don't think he'll just be another Confederation of Grift grifter. I mean, he'll be in and around that, because it's all related. But I actually think he'll get up around the UK columns of this world. He'll certainly be around young Bob. He'll certainly be around all this stuff. And he'll be more overt with his pro-Kremlin stuff, which will feed into that whole Restore orbit. Because he will be a respected voice now. And why this makes me kind of disappointed, or whatever you want to call it, is I just think that it's showing indications that Restore is going to be an AFD light. Or, well, not even an AFD light. It's going to be a British AFD movement, because AFD, Musk loves. Frank Wright, it would seem, Musk loves. Restore, Musk is certainly retweeting and posting about. And then you've got all these other, you've got UK column, this guy, Will Coleshill, who's guested on UK column. This is looking sus. So I don't know if I've hit all the points I wanted to hit in this. I think there's a lot of astroturfing at play, and this guy and this little episode here is one of the more naked versions of that. And we'll see where he goes. I think he will do young Bob. Young Bob. There's another adjective you could apply to young, but whatever. He will do young Bob, and he will do that whole little circuit, and he'll become a fixture in it. And maybe he'll stand for candidacy. Maybe he'll be a Restore councillor, possibly even an MP. I don't know. But this is the alarm bell for me on Restore, or if it does go in this direction, it will be. Because if this just becomes an AFD, skin suit here, oh, that's bad news, to put it mildly. So there you go. I hope I've hit all those, all the points I wanted to make. A bit of a ramble, but whatever. I'd be very interested in your thoughts on this. Were you impressed by his delivery? I mean, like the content, I don't know. It doesn't impress me, because it just rings alarm bells. But so I just think, okay, I just don't buy it. Does anyone buy the Cinderella Story? That's the key question to ask. Do you buy that he was just wandering around down the road, and just by serendipity, Will Coleshill caught his eye and strolled across the road and interviewed him like that? Does anyone believe that they weren't in communication prior to this? If they were in communication prior to this, why wouldn't you just say, yeah, well, I'm aware of Frank and I read his blog and I thought I'd have a chat with him? Why did you need to make it look like this spontaneous moment? It's all part of the branding. Okay, there's a couple of points I kind of missed in this, which are worth just tagging in. And this is related to it's SJJ's recent video, which is one that's worth a watch, which is pertaining to Rupert Lowe having a sort of press advisor who essentially does all his social media. So Rupert Lowe doesn't do his social media, and as far as we know, has never done his social media. And there's this disconnect. This is basically what SJJ is saying. There's this disconnect with what, quote unquote, base Rupert Lowe says on social media, aka his press officer, and what he says actually in interviews. So, and I mean, I saw this, I don't know, a couple of months ago. He was talking about third world orcs, and I just thought that's very weird language for a guy like Rupert Lowe, this urbane kind of banker, to be trotting out, unless it's just out and out demographic farming, which was kind of what I was, I was thinking, is this just shaping up to be the Dissident Right party, which was another of my kind of fears. And it's just, there just seems to be a lot of astroturfing in and around that sphere. Now, there's another guy on Twitter who I don't really, I can't invest much time in it, in all honesty. I really don't look at this kind of stuff in any great detail. But there's a guy called, I think his name's Britboy. He's showed that they're using, I don't know who these people are, but they seem like actors in and around them. Now, maybe this is just the dark arts of politics, and there's certainly a political unit involved in the centre of Restore. Political advisors, experts, social media experts, these kind of people. And so you could say, if you want to be generous, well, this is just the dark arts of it. They need to sort of basically advertise themselves to the electorate. Now, I don't know in depth, because I just, as I say, just haven't spent any great deal of time looking through it. But that guy's pointed to people who have appeared in, I don't know, demonstrations and stuff like that. And it just seems that they're essentially, I don't know if you call them crisis actors, but something, you're in the right ballpark. So it's just very sketchy. And I think that needs to be mentioned as well, because, well, I think it's relevant here. I think there's a lot of astroturfing going on. Now, you could say with those little crisis actor-y sort of things, well, is that just like a sort of like, is this just what happens with politics and this low-level stuff? I'm sure it does. It's just kind of like, that's the gig, possibly. But it was stuff like this with influencer astroturfing, which is what I suspect this is. I'll be quite blunt here. This is what I think it is. I think this guy is being astroturfed into position with all his fucking Zigger talking points ready and primed. Literally 12 hours before, cometh the hour, cometh the moment, wandering down the street, bumping into Will Coleshill, whatever his name is. This great serendipitous moment where he finally, oh God, I just need to get a few things off my chest. I don't know. Going back to the key point, who buys this? Does anyone buy this Cinderella story? If not, where's it leading? Who is leading it? And for what ends? Because as things stand, this is looking very suspicious. So there you go. That's what I just tagged that in at the end, because there's a little bit back, So there you go. I just want to tag that in at the end, because I think this stuff it's important to have then as well. That this is seemingly to be a bit of astroturfing going around, and then there's this guy. So I don't know. As I say, let me know in the comments what you think.